Hello everyone, welcome to the At the Races Flat Season Preview Show on At the Races YouTube and also on attheraces.com. Now remember, it's in 3 sections. We're about to talk about the 3-year-old fillies. But if you want to hear about our thoughts on the 3-year-old colts or the older horses, then just go to the other sections. And don't forget, subscribe to the At the Races YouTube. Right, let's get straight into it because elsewhere we've spoken, Kevin Blake and Seb Sanders, who join me incidentally, we've spoken elsewhere about the 2,000 guineas, Kevin. The 1,000 guineas in many ways is a bit sexier to talk about in that it's not a race people are as interested in, but equally it's more open and therefore it's hopefully easier to have a strong view on something at a better price. At least I'm hoping that's what you'll give me.
Yeah, possibly so, Matt. It definitely has a more open look to it, but I do think it has a proper one up the top of the market in Inspiral for John and Hayley Gosling. I just was so impressed with her through last season, Matt. She's by Frankel, who we know is like the emerging super sire. But the thing about Frankel as a sire is like he hasn't had many tip-top 2-year-olds. They've really been better at 3. So for this filly to do what she did last year, I thought was so impressive. She wasn't just like winning top races. She was doing it despite things not necessarily going right for her, you know. She came from an awful long way back to win at Sandown one day, at Doncaster and Newmarket in her latter 2 starts. Like the races just didn't really pan for her. You know, on the Fillies mile, she got isolated out in the middle with one other, and Frankie probably had to make his move much earlier than he wanted, and she still won really well. Like when you look at what she did last year, when you look at her pedigree, and it's just screaming at you, better at 3. You know, I think it paints her in a very, very flattering light. And while there hasn't been as much chat about her as the likes of a Native Trail, like she is deeply exciting to me.
Is there a chance, Seb, that the Gosden horses have just been needing a run? I know he'll have readied her, but would you be happier with Inspiral if she'd had a prep before the Guineas?
I think she, on the track, she looks a little bit, you know, I wouldn't say bouncy or anything, but she's on it. So I imagine in the mornings she'll be doing plenty anyway. And I wouldn't be sat here saying John Gosden doesn't know what he's doing, but I would say
even though you're in the Appleby camp,
he will have her ready. I don't think she's got to improve to win it. The big problem they could have in the Guineas is a lot of runners. In the fact that might just be drawn away from some of the better horses. The
form is already stacking up. Yeah. Cachet, who Inspiral has beaten, has come out and done okay. So there looks to be some strength and depth already.
Yeah, there's strength and depth, and it's the way she put the races to bed last year was pretty impressive. And I do not think she has to improve to win it. The big problem would be if there was a lot of runners and she maybe got drawn away from some of the better ones.
Well, at the time of recording, our sponsors go 5-2, William Hill, Inspiral for the Guineas, and you'd be doing very well if you can better that, as I say, at the time of recording. Tenebrism and Tuesday, 7-2 and 7-1. Tenebrism, I guess the big question is stamina. Tuesday, beautifully bred, but has to win on a Sunday, which is obviously could be a flaw in the plan. Kevin Blake, you nuzzle up to Aidan O'Brien in a desperate attempt to get work. What's he told you?
Well, I don't know what he told me, Matt, but Tenebrism, like she does have a bit of an X factor about her, and certainly a lot unknown about her. There was great chat about her before she ever run last year, and she was out early, was really impressive at Naas, and then she had a setback, and we didn't see her for ages. And she came back in the Cheveley Park. I think Aidan is saying that, you know, like she was barely ready to run. Like, and they rode her that way as well. They dropped her in last and kind of were just hoping she'd run on well and set herself up for her next start. But she ended up quickening up, like really takingly, and going and winning the Cheveley Park, which seemed like a really, really big effort on the day. She was in the mix for the Breeders' Cup after that, but they decided not to go in the end. And like you say, Matt, she's an unknown in terms of her stamina. The Caravaggio's been having plenty of winners already this season. They seem to be training on well. You'll remember this filly's dam really well, Matt. Immortal Verse. She was an absolute tip-topper. Beat Goldakova one day and, finished in the frame behind Frankel as well. She was a mighty filly, a real out-and-out miler. So I give her a good chance of staying the mile, but yeah,
I've got to be honest, Kev. I don't think that Cheveley Park form is worth toffee. I think it's absolutely rubbish.
You could be right, Matt. I'm not saying you are, but you could. And that even if the Cheveley Park maybe wasn't the tip-top renewal, that doesn't mean that Tenebrism can't win the Guineas. Because you could take the view that she did very well to win it. Interrupted preparation, trip that may prove to have been short of her best. Look, I don't have a strong view on her, Matt, but I know I wouldn't like to be taking 7-2 to find out. It wouldn't shock me if she got the mile, but it's a short old price, I think, for considering the questions that are in front of us with her.
Seb?
It's not the trip that worries me. It's the fact that when she ran in a maiden and she won a maiden, she was 7-2, which is a massive price, really, if she was a talking horse. And then she goes and wins the Cheveley Park 14-1. So on neither starts was the Ballydoyle were confident. So she's an unknown quantity. The trip, I don't think, is an issue. I think she'll stay. I think she relaxes well enough.
Why do you think, on what you've seen of her, she will be a stronger stare than what you've seen of Perfect Power as a colt? What makes you feel Tenebrism will stay when you've dissed Perfect Power?
Because the way she relaxes in the race, she can switch off. Whereas Perfect Power hasn't got that switch off, I don't think. He might have over 6 furlongs, but not over a mile. I don't know. I find her a strange one because both times she ran, even in the maiden, although she was 7-2 favourite, there was no out-and-out confidence, this is a Guineas horse or anything like that. She wasn't a talking horse when she ran in a maiden. And I mean, she won the Cheveley Park. I think she was 14-1. Kevin, is that right?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. And that probably reflects the preparation, Seb, I'd imagine. Like I said, I think they were treating it as, look, a point to start back again with a view to, her next run. And I think she did surprise people that day, not in terms that she was good enough, but that she was ready enough. And I think first time out, I remember it well, there was good chat about it beforehand, but the ground went quite soft, and I think that kind of made people a bit windy that had confidence in her. But in fairness to her, she was very impressive that day, despite greenness. So yeah, she's a really interesting filly. She's the unknown in the race, which is an unusual thing to say about a Group 1 winner, but she does have questions to answer, and I just think she's probably short enough. You need to be braver than me now to take that price,
What about
given
Tuesday,
all the concerns.
Kev? Some William Hill have her quite short. To be fair, she is bigger elsewhere. What do you make of Tuesday?
Yeah, she's a filly. She's only won a maiden, but there's big chat about her as well. She was just touched off, just failed to catch a subsequent Group 1 winner in Discoveries on her only start last season. Got the job done at Naas. And look, she's massive pedigree, full sister to Minding. But I think the latest, Matt, is that they seem to be leaning towards an Oaks trial rather than going to the Guineas. I think that's the latest. So we'll see how it pans out. We still have a couple of weeks to go, but I think that's the latest as far as I'm aware. So we'll see how it pans out between now and then. But on the subject of Tuesday, man, we better talk about Discoveries, who beat Tuesday last year. I think she's one that's potentially flying under the radar. We're talking about Group 1 winners going under the radar. It seems a bit mad. But she doesn't seem to be getting a whole lot of attention on your side of the water. She beat Tuesday. She was 2 green in the debutante stakes at the Curragh, but she went and she won the Moyglare after that. Much more prominent ride, suited her well. She was quite raw when she was under pressure that day. She ran around a bit, but Shane Foley seemed very happy. He didn't pick up a stick until inside the final furlong, and she was on top of Agartha at the line. And I suppose the main angle with her, Matt, is she's a Group 1 winner, but she's a full sister to Alpha Centauri. And you look through that pedigree, and there's a few of them there. Alpine Star was another very good one out of that mare, and Discoveries was the best of all of them at 2. Like, they all made a notable step up from 2 to 3, and if she can make a similar step up, she'll be right in the mix. And apparently the Guineas is where she's being pointed to start off, so she's definitely one to keep an eye on.
I want to just give you a mention to Homeless Songs as well, Kevin. Obviously, the Master of Rosewell, Derma Weld, beautifully bred by Frankel out of a Dubawi mare. You don't get much better than those two horses in the mix. But on debut at Leopardstown, beat Agartha 2 lengths in July, then comes out in April the next year and beats Agartha 1 length. Doesn't necessarily suggest that the Homeless Songs has got any better than she was on debut.
In fairness to Agartha, I think she's improved away the whole time. But like, Homeless Songs looked a Group 1 winner that day when she made that winning debut. Like, I thought she was brilliant. For Frankel to do that in the first week of July, I thought it was hyper impressive. But she didn't do it on her next 2 starts. She was disappointing. She didn't come forward as much as you would have hoped, and she would have had a big question mark hanging over her with a view to this year. But she went and did something very similar in the Guineas trial that she did on debut. Ridden with loads of confidence, showed a big turn of foot down the outside, and the time compared very well with the Colts trial over the same course and distance. So look, I don't know if she has a small kink in her. She might be a bit temperamental, but if Dermot can channel her in the right direction, look, I'd say there's loads and loads of talent in there. It's just a case of getting it out of her.
You know all about small kinks. Seb, any of the others in the mix here, other outside? Because in some ways we're talking about Inspiral as if she should be the same price as Native Trail is in the 2,000 Guineas. There has to be a reason why Inspiral either isn't capturing the imagination of the punters or isn't capturing the imagination of the bookmakers. There has to be a reason, because we're kind of saying Inspiral should just go and win this, aren't we?
Well,
she's not a short price.
I agree with you. I think it's very quiet, but on all bare form, Inspiral looks untouchable over this trip and on this track. I mean, I think she hasn't got to improve. The second favourite, they may say they doubt getting the trip. I'm just not convinced about her because she's never had any confidence behind her going into a racetrack.
Is there anything else, Kev, we should have a look at in the 1,000? Is there anything? That mise en scene, for instance, is 14 to 1 with our sponsors, William Hill. I know Asheen's been going down to ride her work. Now, she was she wasn't terrible at the Breeders' Cup because she wasn't beaten far, but she was a long way down the field. She looked really good at Goodwood last season in one run, didn't she?
She did, and then she went to the Fillies Mile, and she ran a kind of a funny race behind Inspiral. She looked as though the experience would be of benefit to her. She was probably just a bit raw on the day, but at the end of the day, she was beaten 3 lengths by Inspiral. So, she's got to go and prove that, plus whatever Inspiral might have come forward over the winter. So I think it would be a tough ask. And look, if you like her, you'll get a fair price for your money, but it's a fair old jump she needs to make, I think.
OK. Let's move on to the Oaks team. Seb, we've got kind of the same mix of horses. Yeah. It's slightly different to the 2,000 Guineas in that a lot of the Guineas horses, as far as the Fillies, look as though they will stay further. The new name in the mix here is this Agave. Yeah. That's the horse that just suddenly comes to the fore.
I was so impressed with this when he won at St. Cloud. Was
St. Cloud?
St. Cloud or St. Cloud? I don't know.
I've never heard of that track, but I've heard of St. Cloud.
Anyway, I was trying to put my French accent on, as you know I have got.
Well, don't. OK, St. Cloud, yeah.
So, Pellier rode it with ultimate...
Rode her
with ultimate...
People get very upset if you call them it.
Ultimate confidence.
This has not gone well. I almost feel we should start the whole section again, Seb. But anyway, St. Cloud, Agave, Filly, lovely, cuddly, almost romantical, unlike Kevin Blake.
No,
He's a horrible man, Seb, isn't he? Just a horrible man.
I'll get my words out in a minute.
I wish you would.
Will you shut up?
Only got half an hour a section, man.
No, he oozed confidence on her. She didn't. I think she won 3 parts of her length, but it could have been 10 lengths. I mean, she was very, very, very impressive.
And the Master European trainer, Andre Fabre, has been a little bit quiet in recent times.
Yeah.
Almost Sir Henry Cecil-esque, where you think, could this be the end sort of thing? Then, of course, Frankel comes along.
Yeah.
You know, and it is the old cliche, isn't it? Form is temporary, class is permanent. Fabre seems to be back this year already.
Yeah, I mean, I just felt that this filly had something purring underneath her when she won at St. Cloud. And
Cloud.
And I couldn't have been more impressed with her. That's all I've got to say about her.
Yeah. Do you like that St. Cloud form, Kevin?
Oh, absolutely, Matt, yeah. Look, this is one of those, like, we talked about the Commonwealth Cup having a lot of development left in it. Like, this race will change markedly, I'd imagine, in the next few weeks. With the Salsable Stakes, the Blue Wind Stakes over on this side of the water. You guys have a bunch of Oaks trials coming up as well. And, there's plenty of back-end 2-year-olds from last year that, wouldn't necessarily have shown themselves to be tip-toppers or tip-top prospects.
You mean, you've clearly done your homework for this show, so give us some names.
Yeah, I can throw a few from this side of the water. History is one trained by Aidan O'Brien that is interesting. She took 3 goes to win last year, but she kind of came forward with every start, and she was quite impressive in the last of them. She's got a big pedigree. She made 2.8 million as a yearling. A Galileo out of prime exhibit, so I think she'll be starting off in an Oaks trial, and she could potentially announce her arrival in the wider consciousness. And Teddy Joseph has a couple of nice fillies there that could develop into Oaks types, hopefully. One of them was on your betting caption there, Above the Curve. By American Pharaoh out of a Galileo mare. She had a really, really nice run at Leopardstown last season. Missed the kick, finished off very well. And started back at Leopardstown a couple of weeks ago, over 10 furlongs, and I really did think she was impressive. It was great to see her do it. Like, she had a wide spin, and yet she overcame that to win very well. Looked green in front. She's always gone like a very nice filly, so we'll be seeing her in an Oaks trial imminently. So we'll get a better idea of where she stands. And one we saw a little bit more of last year is Tranquil Lady. She's by Australia, a half sister, to State of Rest, who won the Cox Plate last year. And again, just start progression last season. Ended up finishing second in a listed race at the Curragh, beaten by one of Paddy Toomey's called Limited de Grisha, who's quite well regarded. And she's a filly that will stay well, Matt. So I'd say getting her in an Oaks trial over 10 furlongs will show her to even better effect, and getting her up to 12 is something that'll be quite exciting too. So there's a couple of slightly sneakier ones that you definitely didn't hear of before this broadcast. So there you go.
No, and just about staying awake. I'll tell you, how many winners Kevin Blake under rules?
Oh, I don't know. 0.
Same as you, Matt.
0. You, champion. Yeah. Respect, man.
Cheers.
Although only half, but joint champion. So you're in a great position, though, to talk about a horse called Life of Dreams, who just looked awesome at Newbury in a race which has thrown up 1 or 2 decent ones over the years. How good... And you can give things away now, because no way Charlie's ever watching this on that. Well, he probably does, doesn't he? He probably just sits there watching At the Races and the At the Races YouTube.
Well, I mean, if he knows you're on, I think he watches, yeah.
Life of Dreams, Sebastian. By Dubawi, out of a See the Stars mare. Doesn't get much better than that. She could be really good, couldn't she?
She could be really good. And as you've already mentioned, she won a maiden at Newbury. But when you look at the likes
of... At least it wasn't at St. Cloud.
Dancing Rain won it in 2011.
Yeah.
Islington won it in 2002. More recently, Lati Dar won it in 2018, and she finished second in the Ledger to Kew Gardens. It's a maiden that throws up some pretty decent horses.
That wasn't the maiden... That wasn't the race that Nabel was beaten in, was it? I can't remember.
It could be, yeah.
Do you remember Enable?
Yeah.
I can't remember. Just off the top of my head, because that's the kind of talent that I have. The not really annoying thing is, as we say this, Blakey's looking it up. That's the annoying thing. But anyway, you want to prove me wrong. No, it was a different one. No. But anyway, do you remember a neighbour got beat by the other Abdullah horse in something at Newbury? But it might have been, I can't remember anyway. It was off the top of my head.
God, you might have been right, Matt. Shutter speed.
Yeah.
You might have been right.
Yeah, I probably am. But anyway, coming back to Life of Dreams, because this is not all about my talent.
Yeah.
It's about Life of Dreams' talent. What do you reckon?
Stays. I think she'll stay very well. She's got a real nice turn of foot, a very good temperament. Look, she ticks all the boxes. She's just got to show that bit of class.
How much are Appleby horses likely to come on for a run? Is he a trainer like a David Loader? They're revved. Or would you say, in your experience, and there's no right answer to this, whatever you say, because they're both are talented things to do as a trainer, or do you think that Charlie generally trains bringing horses on like a Roger Varian tends to do?
Well, I tend to think that they're pretty fit when they run. It's more ability that improves rather than fitness. She looked a pretty raw filly, and I thought would improve a fair bit for the run. But fitness-wise, I don't think they'll get much fitter. But ability-wise, they improve a lot, and there's a big difference.
Yeah, I'm afraid, Matthew, you are mistaken.
Right,
Enable was beaten in a conditions race against the Colts, whereas Life of Dreams won a Fillies maiden.
Yeah. Well, I knew it was a Newbury, though, wasn't it?
It was at Newbury, yeah.
That's all that matters. As long as they got the track right. As long as they got the track right, that's all that matters.
The Lockhinge was at Newbury as well.
Horrible.
Well, yeah,
a man who's lived on a very lucky treble at Cheltenham for 100 years. Right, I'm going to ask a filly to follow from both of you. One filly to follow, Kevin, and you can't say the missus.
One to follow. I give you Above the Curve. I do have a soft spot for Above the Curve. And one other one that I meant to mention in the dark horse section was Only of Aidan O'Brien. Debuted the other day, massive pedigree. I'd say there'd be an awful lot of improvement in her.
Sebastian Sanders, former joint champion jockey. One filly you can't wait to see.
I gave. I want to see the engine opened up on Agave.
The St. Cloud horse.
The one that ran in France, yeah.
You know what? I'm so pleased that no one's mentioned this horse, because it is my filly to follow. And it's a horse that could still win the 1,000 guineas, and we haven't even mentioned her. I don't think she'll run in it. Amina, or Amena. Amena, who...
Our pronunciations are not very...
Well, we don't actually know, but I think it's Amena. Do you remember Roger Varian at the Newmarket Craven meeting?
Yeah.
Didn't introduce Amena because she'd already won once and finished second on her debut there in a big field to Ribbon Rose. Showed ability, but size, the size of this beast. When she came back and she won that maiden by nearly 4 lengths, looking like a beastie. She's by Exceeding Excel out of an Ifraj mare. The way Varian trains, I suspect she won't go to the Guineas, because but he has done this before in a race like this with a horse and run well in the Guineas before. I just think she looks brilliant. I think she really is a very, very strong filly to follow. Maybe not for the Guineas. I'm not talking anti-post here. I'll get to my anti-post in a minute. But filly to follow. Neither of you two have even heard of her. Amena for me. Your anti-post filly's bet.
Well, I've no chance of finding out about her, Matt, because you've absolutely butchered the pronunciation. I've no idea how you might spell it. And she's not going to run. The only thing you like about her is she's a big, nice, big filly. So I think we're still struggling. She's still fairly dark, I think, Matt.
As I say, you have to go back to Cheltenham, 1863. Kevin, just very quickly, your anti-post bet in the fillies is? 3-year-old fillies. Anti-post. Come on.
Discoveries and the 1,000 guineas. That'll do me.
Which one?
Discoveries.
No. Anti-post for you?
I think Inspiral's a massive price.
I agree. Absolutely smash into Inspiral.
I think she's a massive.
Our friends at William Hill won't know what's hit them. I tell you. Inspiral.
It's going to tip every fab, Matthew.
Wow.
Oh, that was a swipe, that was.
I don't think he's understood the show. It's about winners. And the thing is, he's really got into the groove of losing. And so he hasn't quite understood what it's all about. But we'll explain to him in a moment or two. Now, if you've enjoyed this section, God help you, on the 3-year-old fillies, kindly sponsored, of course, on the attheraces.com preview show of the flat season by William Hill, then don't forget about the colt section, which is even more interesting, or indeed the older horses. Now, we haven't recorded the older horses at the time I'm recording this 3-year-old fillies show, but I know it will be more interesting. So do go to the older horses section right now. And don't forget, At The Races YouTube and attheraces.com. I think I've covered everything I need to plug there, so you know where you're going, and thank you. Thank you.